The night was quiet, only the sound of the wind moving through narrow streets. The lamps of the colony gave a weak yellow light, not enough to chase away the shadows. A human man walked slowly down the path, carrying a small bag of food from the market. His day had been long, and he wanted nothing more than to eat and rest. But fate had something else waiting for him. As he passed an empty alley, a faint sound reached his ears. At first he thought it was the wind. But then he heard it again, soft and trembling like a broken whisper. His steps stopped. He turned his head toward the dark corner, unsure if his mind was playing tricks. Then the words became clear. "Can we have your leftovers?" The voice was weak, almost too small to hear. His heart beat faster. Someone was hiding in the alley. He stepped closer, his eyes adjusting to the darkness. At first he saw nothing, only broken boxes and trash near the wall. But then two small shapes moved, pulling away from the light as if afraid to be seen. The man tightened his grip on his bag. In this colony, helping strangers, especially aliens, was dangerous. Still, he could not ignore the trembling voices. He took another step, and the sound of quick breaths reached him. The shapes became clearer. Two little girls pressed against each other, their eyes shining in the dim light. Their skin had strange patterns, marks that showed they were not human. Their clothes were torn, their faces covered in dust, and their arms thin like sticks. For a moment the man said nothing. He only looked at them, and they looked back, frightened and desperate. The older girl pushed the younger one slightly behind her as if protecting her. She tried to stand strong, but her legs shook. The younger one held her sister's arm tightly, her eyes full of hunger and fear. "Please," the older girl whispered. "Again, your leftovers." The words cut into his chest like a blade. He opened his bag and saw the bread he had bought, still warm, and a small piece of dried meat. He had planned to eat this for dinner. His own stomach was empty too. But when he looked at the girls, he felt his hunger fade. They looked as if they had not eaten for days. Their lips were dry, their cheeks hollow. He took a slow breath. Every law in this colony warned against feeding alien children. The patrols called them strays, a problem to be removed, not helped. Any human caught helping them could lose his home, his work, or worse. He knew this truth well, yet his hand moved anyway, reaching into the bag. The girl's eyes widened as he broke the bread into two pieces. He stretched out his arm. The older girl hesitated, pulling the younger one back again. Fear and hope fought inside her face. She glanced at the man, then at the bread. Finally, hunger won. With a shaking hand, she reached forward and took the piece. The younger girl followed, clutching her share tightly. The moment the bread touched their hands, they began to eat. No manners, no waiting. They bit into it with desperation, chewing so fast it was hard to watch. The man stood silently, his chest heavy. Each bite made him realize how close they must have been to collapse. He wondered how many others had walked past them, hearing nothing, seeing nothing, pretending they were not there. When the girls had finished, they licked their fingers, trying not to waste a single crumb. The younger one looked up at him with big eyes, as if unsure whether to thank him or beg for more. The older girl wiped her mouth and whispered, "Thank you." Her voice was still shaking, but now there was something else in it, a small spark of life. The man wanted to ask many questions. Who were they? Where had they come from? Where were their parents? But when he opened his mouth, he closed it again. The younger girl leaned into her sister, hiding her face. They did not trust him fully, and he understood. Trust was a rare thing in this world. Still, he could not walk away. His eyes moved back to the shadows around them. The alley felt colder now, darker. He thought of the patrols who searched at night for anyone breaking the rules. If they found these girls, they would be dragged away. No one would ever see them again. He gripped the strap of his bag, thinking hard. His own life had been simple until now: work, eat, sleep, repeat. But this chance meeting was about to change everything. As he looked at the two starving children, a storm built inside him. Should he leave them here to suffer, as the colony demanded? Or should he risk everything and take them in? His heart already knew the answer, but his mind still wrestled with fear. Then the younger girl spoke for the first time. Her voice was even softer than her sister's, but it carried straight into his heart. "Please don't leave us." The man's breath caught in his throat. That one sentence burned away the last of his doubt. The night air grew colder. The shadows seemed thicker, but his choice had already been made. The man's feet moved on their own as he stepped deeper into the alley. The smell of damp stone and old trash filled the air, yet all he could see were the two small figures in front of him. The girls clutched the bread he had given them, biting down as if afraid it would vanish before they could finish. Their hands shook, crumbs falling to the ground, but they quickly picked them up, unwilling to lose even a single piece. The man crouched to see them better. In the faint light, their alien features became clearer. Their skin was pale with faint, silver patterns running across their arms and necks, glowing softly in the darkness. Their eyes were large and round, shining with a strange light, a mark of their race. They were not from Earth, that much was certain. Their bodies were so thin that their bones pressed against the torn cloth they wore, and their bare feet were cut and dirty. The older girl looked at him with suspicion, chewing quickly as though ready to run if he moved too close. She kept her arm wrapped around the younger one, shielding her like a wall, even though she herself looked weak. The younger girl, smaller and softer in appearance, leaned against her sister's chest, her cheeks hollow, but her eyes wide with hope. The man's heart ached at the sight. He had seen hunger before. The colony was not kind to its workers either, but this was different. This was not the hunger of a skipped meal. This was the slow torture of children left without care for days, maybe weeks. He wanted to ask them questions. Where was their home? Who had left them like this? Why were they in this alley begging strangers for scraps? But he held his tongue. The fear in their eyes told him they were not ready to answer. Instead, he reached into his bag again and pulled out the dried meat he had kept for himself. He tore it in two and offered it silently. The younger girl reached for it, but the older one pulled her back sharply. She looked at the man with distrust, her lips pressed tightly. He did not push, did not speak. He simply kept his hand open, the food resting in his palm. For a long moment, the alley was silent except for the sound of the younger girl's breathing. Finally, the older one stretched her hand forward, snatched the meat, and gave it to her sister. Only when she saw the younger girl chewing did she allow herself to take the other half. The man lowered his hand and sighed. Their caution was not surprising. The colony had taught all aliens to fear humans. He could not blame them for their mistrust. Still, the fact that they accepted his food meant something, some small step of fragile trust. He watched as the girls finished their meal, their small hands clutching the food tightly, as if someone might steal it from them. When they were done, the older girl wiped her sister's face with her sleeve. She tried to keep her chin high, but her eyes betrayed exhaustion. The younger one's head began to droop, her body swaying as if sleep could no longer be held back. The man's gaze softened. They were not just hungry, they were broken, worn down by fear and loneliness. Every line of their bodies screamed desperation. And yet, in the way the older sister held the younger close, there was still love, still strength, even if it was fading. He felt a heavy weight press against his chest. If he left now, they would not last another night. The colony streets were cruel. Other humans might chase them away or worse. And if the patrols found them, their fate would be sealed. He opened his mouth at last, his voice low, gentle. "Where are your parents?" The question hung in the air like a blade. The older girl froze, her hand tightening around her sister's shoulder. She turned her face away, refusing to answer. The younger one stirred, her lips parting as if to speak, but a sharp look from her sister silenced her. That silence told the man more than words could. Something had happened to their family, something dark. He stood up slowly, looking at the empty street behind him. No one was there yet, but he knew patrols often passed this way. He had minutes, maybe less, before someone else noticed the girls. His thoughts raced. If he walked away, he could go home to safety. If he stayed, he risked punishment. The younger girl's voice broke the silence again. "It's cold." She hugged herself, shivering. Her small frame looked like it could be snapped by the wind itself. The man clenched his fists. He could not bear to see this any longer. He had told himself for years that survival meant keeping his head down, obeying the rules, never standing out. But looking at these two starving children, that belief felt like a chain around his soul. He crouched once more and whispered, "You cannot stay here." His words made the older girl stiffen. She shook her head, pulling her sister tighter, as if she feared he was about to drag them away. But instead of reaching for them, the man placed the empty bag on the ground. He pushed it toward them gently. "If you trust me even a little, follow me. I will not hurt you." The older girl's eyes narrowed. She studied him carefully, weighing danger against hope. The younger one, still chewing the last piece of meat, looked up with wide eyes. "Sister," she whispered, "I'm not afraid." The man stayed quiet, waiting. The choice was theirs, not his. The alley was silent, the shadows deep, the world holding its breath. Finally, with trembling steps, the older girl stood, pulling her sister up with her. They did not take his hand, but they did not run either. They simply looked at him, waiting for what he would do next. And in that moment, he knew his life would never be the same again. The man led the two alien girls out of the alley, moving carefully so no one would notice. The streets were nearly empty, but the risk of patrols was always there. His steps were steady, yet his mind was racing. Each glance at the girls reminded him of the choice he had made. He could not turn back now. The girls followed a few paces, behind, holding each other's hands tightly. The older one walked stiffly, her shoulders tense, ready to pull her sister away at the first sign of danger. The younger girl's steps were smaller, weaker, but her wide eyes stayed fixed on the man, as if she was still deciding whether he could be trusted. When they reached the edge of the colony housing block, the man slowed. His small cabin was not far, hidden between other worn-out homes. He looked around, making sure no guard was in sight. Only then did he motion for the girls to follow him inside. The door creaked softly as he pushed it open. The room inside was simple. One bed, one chair, a small table and shelves with tools and a few books. It was not much, but it was safe, at least for now. The girls stepped in hesitantly. Their eyes scanned the place, cautious but curious. The younger one touched the wooden table with her small hand, brushing away a thin layer of dust. The older girl kept her sister close, her gaze sharp and watchful. The man closed the door quietly and set down his things. For a long moment, no one spoke. The silence grew heavy, filled only with the sound of the girl's faint breathing. Finally, he broke it. "You should sit, you look tired." The younger girl's legs were already trembling, so she climbed onto the chair. The older one remained standing, her arms wrapped around her chest, still on guard. The man pulled out a small clay jug of water and placed it on the table with 2 cups. He poured carefully and pushed 1 cup toward them. The younger girl reached out, but once again the older stopped her. She looked at the man, her expression hard as if testing him. He understood. Without a word, he took the cup, drank a long sip himself, then refilled it and set it back on the table. Only then did the older girl allow her sister to drink. The younger one lifted the cup with both hands and drank greedily. Drops of water ran down her chin, but she kept going until the cup was empty. Her face softened with relief, and she gave a tiny smile. The man felt something stir inside him, something he had not felt in years. The older girl finally lowered herself into the chair beside her sister. Her hands were rough and scraped, but she held them steady. For the first time, she spoke more than a whisper. "Why are you helping us?" The man looked at her. Her voice carried no trust, only suspicion. It was the voice of someone who had seen too much pain. He sighed, "Because no one else will, and because I cannot watch children starve." The older girl did not reply. Her eyes flickered down to her sister, who was still rubbing her hands together to stay warm. She tightened her jaw, as if she wanted to say more but held it back. The man leaned forward slightly. "Where are your parents?" The question brought silence again. The younger girl lowered her head, her lips trembling. The older one stared at the floor, refusing to answer. The weight of their silence was heavier than words. He realized the truth in that moment. Whatever had happened, it was not something they wanted to remember. He chose not to push. Instead, he spoke gently. "You don't have to tell me now, but you are safe here. No one will harm you while you are under my roof." The younger girl looked up, her eyes wide. She whispered softly, "Safe?" The word sounded strange on her lips, like she had not said it in a very long time. The man gave a small nod. "Yes, safe." The older girl studied him again, her sharp gaze searching for any sign of a lie. Finally, she looked away, her shoulders loosening just a little. It was not trust, not yet, but it was the beginning of something close. As the night grew colder, the man pulled out a thin blanket from his bed. He draped it across the two girls where they sat. The younger one clutched it immediately, her body curling under the warmth. Her eyelids began to close, her breathing slowing. The older girl stayed awake, her head tilted slightly as she watched him move around the room. She did not sleep, but she did not stop him either. The man sat down on the edge of the bed, watching them quietly. His mind was heavy with questions and fears. The colony would not forgive him if they discovered what he had done. But as he looked at the two fragile figures before him, he knew he could not regret it. The younger girl finally drifted into sleep, her head resting against her sister's arm. The older one reached up and brushed a strand of hair from her sister's face. For the first time, the man saw the faintest glimmer of softness in her expression. Then she spoke again, her voice almost too low to hear. "If they find us, they will take us away." The man's heart tightened. He leaned forward, his voice steady but firm. "Then I will not let them find you." Her eyes met his for a brief moment. In that small exchange, something shifted. Still, fragile but real. A thread of trust began to form. The silence that followed was no longer heavy. It was something else, something waiting, something fragile but alive. And in that silence, the man realized this was only the beginning of a story that would change all of their lives forever. The night stretched on, and the small cabin grew quiet. The younger alien girl slept soundly under the blanket, her breath soft and even. The older girl sat beside her, still alert, her eyes fixed on the man who had brought them here. She did not trust him completely, but her body showed exhaustion. She could no longer hide. The man sat across the room, staring into the dim glow of his lantern. His mind was restless. He had broken the rules of the colony, rules written in stone, rules that punished kindness when it was given to aliens. Yet when he looked at the two sisters, he knew he would not change his choice. After a long silence, he spoke again. "You should rest. You need your strength." The older girl shook her head. Her voice came low and tight. "If I sleep, they might come." The man frowned. "Who will come?" She lowered her gaze, her lips pressing together. At first she refused to answer, but then slowly, as though the words were painful, she whispered, "The patrols." The word hung heavy in the air. The man had suspected this truth, but hearing it from her lips made it sharp and undeniable. Patrols were feared even by humans. For aliens, they meant chains, separation, and disappearance. The man leaned forward, his voice steady. "What happened to your family?" The older girl's hands tightened around her sister's small shoulder. Her eyes glistened, but she refused to let tears fall. "They came at night. They took my mother. They took my father. They said we were not welcome. They said we were a danger." Her voice cracked, and she looked away quickly, ashamed to show weakness. The man felt a deep weight in his chest. He had seen patrols drag people away before. Sometimes it was workers who spoke too loudly against unfair rules. Sometimes it was families accused of helping aliens. He had never seen them bring anyone back. The girl's voice dropped lower. I tried to run with my sister. We hid in the market, we begged, but no one helped us. They all turned their eyes away. Her words cut like a knife. The man thought of the people he passed every day. Neighbors, workers, merchants. He could imagine them ignoring two starving children too afraid to act. The younger girl stirred in her sleep, pressing closer into her sister's side. The older girl stroked her hair gently, her harsh voice softening for a moment. I promised her I would keep her safe, even if it means hiding forever. The man sat silently. He felt her pain like it was his own. For years he had lived quietly, telling himself survival meant following the rules. But looking at the two sisters, he wondered if survival without compassion was worth anything at all. He spoke at last, his tone calm but firm. You are not alone anymore, I will help you. The older girl's eyes flicked up, sharp with suspicion. Why? Humans hate us. They call us strays. If they find out you hide us, they will punish you too. The man did not look away. Because it is wrong to let children starve. Because no one deserves to live in fear. Her stare held his for a long moment. She was searching, testing, trying to see if his words carried truth. Slowly, her shoulders lowered just slightly, the edge of her suspicion dulling. But before she could speak again, the sound of boots echoed faintly outside the cabin. Heavy steps, slow, too steady to be travelers. The man's blood ran cold. He quickly doused the lantern, plunging the cabin into darkness. He motioned for silence, pressing a finger to his lips. The older girl froze, pulling her sister tightly against her. The younger one stirred, confused, but stayed quiet. The footsteps drew closer, stopping just beyond the door. The air inside, the cabin grew tense, every breath held in fear. A hand brushed against the door, testing it. The wood creaked softly. The man reached for the old hunting knife hidden beneath his bed. His grip tightened around the handle. His heart pounded, but his mind stayed sharp. Minutes felt like hours as the figure outside lingered. Finally, the sound of boots shifted again, moving past the cabin and fading into the night. The silence that followed was suffocating. When the danger seemed gone, the man lit the lantern again, its glow trembling with the flame. The older girl's face was pale, her eyes wide. She whispered harshly, "They are looking for us." The man nodded. His decision was already made, though fear gripped him like ice. Keeping the girls hidden would be more dangerous than he had imagined. Yet leaving them to fate was no longer an option. He spoke firmly, his voice carrying a promise. "Then they will not find you. Not while I am here." The older girl's lips trembled. She had no reply, but the tears she had held back finally welled in her eyes. She blinked them away quickly, refusing to cry in front of him. The man leaned back slowly, his mind heavy with what lay ahead. He had stepped into the shadows of their past, and now those shadows were reaching for him too. But even as fear wrapped around him, a stronger truth burned inside. He would not abandon them. The night deepened and silence returned, but none of them truly slept. Outside, the world was hostile and cold. Inside, a fragile bond had begun to grow, a bond strong enough to challenge even the cruelest rules of the colony. The morning came slowly. A thin line of sunlight slipped through the cracks of the cabin's window, painting the wooden floor with a pale glow. The man had not slept at all. His eyes were red, his body tired, but his mind stayed sharp. The memory of footsteps outside his door the night before haunted him. He knew it had not been a mistake. The patrols were searching. The two alien girls still rested on his bed, curled together under the blanket. The younger one slept deeply, her breathing calm and soft. The older girl lay awake, her gaze fixed on the door, her body tense even in stillness. She had not closed her eyes once through the night. The man rose quietly and stepped to the small shelf. He pulled out what little food he had left, a small loaf of bread, some dried roots, and a jug of water. It was not enough for 3 people. Not for long. Yet when he placed the bread on the table, he knew he would give it to them first. His stomach tightened with hunger, but he ignored it. The older girl finally spoke, her voice hoarse. "You should not keep us here. If they find us, they will take you too." The man turned toward her, his face calm but his heart heavy. "I already chose. You are staying." Her eyes narrowed. "Why risk your life for us?" He paused. His whole life had been about surviving quietly, following rules he hated but never breaking. But last night when he heard the girl whisper, "Please don't leave us," something inside him had changed. "Because doing nothing is worse," he said at last. "Because if I walk away, I will not be human anymore." The older girl looked at him for a long time. Her lips pressed tightly, but she gave no answer. The younger one stirred then, rubbing her eyes. She sat up and smiled faintly when she saw the bread. Her small hands reached for it, but her sister stopped her, waiting for the man's permission. He nodded, and the younger girl ate happily, breaking the bread into small pieces and sharing with her sister. As they ate, the man stepped outside for a moment. The air was sharp and cold, filled with the sound of the colony waking. Workers moved toward the fields, guards marched along the streets, and traders set up stalls in the market. To anyone else, it was an ordinary day, but for him, everything had changed. He glanced back at his cabin, fear twisting in his chest. If anyone discovered the girls inside, his life would be over. Yet when he thought of their hollow faces, their trembling voices, he knew he would not let them go. Later that day, news spread through the colony. 2 alien strays had been seen stealing food near the market. The patrols had doubled their watch, searching homes, questioning workers. Whispers passed from mouth to mouth, carrying fear. The man heard it all as he worked in the fields, his hands gripping the tools tightly. Every word was a reminder of the danger. He forced himself to look, calm, to act as if nothing was wrong, but inside he counted the hours until he could return to his cabin. When evening came, he hurried home. As he opened the door, the girls looked up. Relief washed over their faces when they saw him safe. The younger girl ran to him, clutching his sleeve. "You came back," she whispered. The man crouched down and placed a hand on her shoulder. "I will always come back." But his words carried a weight he could not ignore. He had made a choice, and now the consequences were drawing closer. That night, while the girls ate the last of the dried roots, the man heard voices outside again. Not just one pair of boots this time, several. The sound of metal, the low murmur of guards, carried through the thin walls. His heart pounded. He moved quickly, lifting the rug near the table and pulling open a wooden hatch. Beneath it was a shallow space he had once used for storing tools. Now it would serve another purpose. He motioned for the girls. "Hide, now." The older girl hesitated, her eyes flashing with fear. But when she heard the guard's steps draw nearer, she grabbed her sister's hand and lowered them both into the hidden space. The man closed the hatch and pulled the rug back over it just as the knock came at his door. "Open up," a harsh voice barked. The man forced his breath to steady. He opened the door to find 3 patrol soldiers standing before him, their armor dark, their eyes sharp. One stepped inside without asking, scanning the small cabin with suspicion. "We are looking for 2 alien strays," the soldier said. "Girls. Have you seen them?" The man kept his face blank. "No, I have seen no one." The soldiers searched, opening shelves, turning over blankets, checking corners. The man's heart thundered as one of them stepped near the rug. The soldier paused, his boot pressing on the wood beneath. The sound echoed faintly. His eyes narrowed. For a moment, the man thought it was over. He gripped the knife hidden behind his back, ready for the worst. But then the soldier shrugged and turned away. "Nothing here." The patrol left, their boots fading into the distance. The man closed the door and let out the breath he had held. His hands shook as he lifted the rug and opened the hatch. The 2 girls crawled out, their faces pale. The younger one clung to him, tears in her eyes. The older girl stared at him, her lips trembling. She whispered, "You risked everything." The man met her gaze. "I told you, you are not alone anymore." The silence that followed was heavy, but it was no longer filled with fear. It carried something else now, something deeper, a bond of trust, born from danger, sealed by his choice. But in the distance, the sound of patrol horns echoed. The man knew this was only the beginning. The night after the patrol's search was restless. The man did not close his eyes even once. Every small sound outside the cabin, wind against the door, a dog barking far away, footsteps in the street, made his body tense. He knew the patrols were not finished. They would return, and next time they might not leave so quickly. The two alien girls slept on the bed, curled together under the thin blanket. The younger one's face was peaceful, but the older girl stirred often, her brows tight with worry even in her dreams. They had lived with fear for so long that even sleep could not free them. As dawn broke, the man stepped outside. The colony. Streets were busy again. Merchants shouted at their stalls, workers marched toward the fields, and soldiers patrolled with cold eyes. No one looked at him directly, but whispers floated in the air. Everyone knew the patrols were searching for two alien children. Everyone also knew that punishment would be severe for anyone caught helping them. When he returned to the cabin, the older girl was already awake. She sat at the edge of the bed, her arm around her sister, watching him carefully. "They will come back," she said quietly. He nodded. "I know." "Then you should send us away," she continued. Her voice was sharp, but beneath it lay sorrow. "If they find us here, you will lose everything." The man stepped closer, his eyes steady. "I have already made my choice. I will not let them take you." The girl looked down, her hands tightening around her sister's shoulder. She wanted to argue, but she could not find the words. Part of her feared he was right. If they left, they would not survive. If they stayed, he would be in danger. Either way, the risk was heavy. That day, while the girls rested, the man prepared. He gathered food, tools, and water, whatever he could carry. He knew that hiding them inside the colony could not last. If the patrols searched every home, they would find them eventually. There was only one path left: escape. But leaving the colony was no simple task. The walls were guarded day and night. Beyond them lay wild lands filled with danger. Few dared to cross. Yet when the man looked at the girls, he knew he would face whatever lay outside, rather than hand them over. In the evening, the knock came, again. Harder this time. Louder. The sound made the younger girl cry out in fear. The man's blood turned cold. He motioned for silence, rushing to cover the hatch under the rug once more. The sisters hid quickly, their small bodies squeezing into the dark space. The door rattled as the soldiers banged harder. "Open now!" The man opened the door slowly. 3 guards pushed inside, their eyes scanning every corner. One of them kicked over the chair, another lifted the thin mattress on the bed. The leader stepped forward, his face cruel. "We know they were seen nearby," the soldier growled. "If you hide them, you will hang." The man's voice was calm, though his chest burned with fear. "I live alone, there is no one here," the soldier sneered. "Then you will not mind if we search again." For several long minutes, the soldiers tore through the cabin. One of them stood on the rug, his boot pressing dangerously close to the hidden hatch. The man's hand rested on the knife at his side, ready to strike if they uncovered it. Sweat rolled down his neck. Finally, the leader spat on the floor. "Nothing. But if we find out you are lying, you will beg for death." They stormed out, their boots pounding against the ground until the sound faded. The man dropped to his knees, pulling the rug away and lifting the hatch. The girls crawled out, shaking, their faces pale with terror. The younger one clung to his arm, whispering through tears, "I thought they found us." The man hugged her gently, his voice firm. "As long as I live, they will not." The older girl looked at him, her eyes wet, but her expression strong. "They will never stop. You are risking everything. Why?" His reply came without hesitation. "Because compassion has a price, and I am willing to pay it." For the first time, the older girl's defenses began to break. She lowered her gaze, whispering, "No one has ever spoken like that to us." The man placed a hand on her shoulder, Then remember it. You are not a stray. You are children, and you deserve to live. That night, as the patrol horns echoed again in the distance, the man packed his bag in silence. His choice was clear now. The colony had become a cage, and cages could not hold kindness. The sisters sat quietly watching him prepare. The younger girl leaned against her sister, her small voice trembling. "Where will we go?" The man looked at them, his jaw firm. "Somewhere the patrols cannot follow." The older girl's eyes filled with doubt. "Is there such a place?" He gave a short nod. "We will make one." The lantern light flickered against the walls as silence fell. Outside, the colony prepared for another day of control and fear. Inside, 3 souls prepared to defy it. The price of compassion was heavy, but the man knew he would carry it no matter the cost. The final night in the colony was the longest of his life. The man sat at the edge of his bed, his bag packed with food, water, and tools. The sisters huddled together under the blanket, their faces pale but their eyes awake. None of them slept. The sound of patrol horns drifted through the streets outside, carried on the cold wind like a warning. The man knew the patrols were closing in. At dawn, he rose. "It is time," he whispered. The older girl's face tensed. She had known this moment was coming. The younger one clutched her sister's hand, fear trembling in her voice. "Will they chase us?" "Yes," the man said honestly. "But we will be faster, and we will be together." He led them out into the gray morning. The streets were nearly empty, but soldiers already marched near the colony gates. The man kept to the shadows, moving swiftly, his eyes sharp. Every corner felt dangerous, every step too loud. The older girl stayed close, her arm wrapped around her sister. The younger one stumbled, but the man lifted her into his arms without a word and carried her forward. The colony wall loomed ahead, tall, strong, guarded. 2 soldiers stood at the gate, their rifles gleaming in the morning light. To pass them was impossible. But the man knew another way. Years ago, when he worked, repairing fences, he had discovered a weak spot along the far side of the wall. It was dangerous, narrow, and half hidden by rubble, but it was their only chance. They moved quickly, circling the colony until the broken section came into view. The man knelt and pulled away loose stones, revealing a gap just wide enough for the girls to crawl through. "Hurry," he urged. The older girl pushed her sister through first. The younger one wriggled across, her small body slipping to the other side. The older girl followed, her arms scraping against the stone, but she made it. The man started to climb after them when a shout rang out. "Stop!" 2 patrol soldiers had spotted him. Their boots thundered against the ground as they charged. The man's heart pounded. He shoved his bag through the gap and turned back, pulling out the hunting knife he always carried. The soldiers raised their rifles, their faces twisted with anger. The man stood his ground. Behind him, the older girl's voice cried out, "Come with us, don't stay!" But the man knew there was no time. If he crawled through slowly, they would grab him before he reached the other side. He had to hold them off. The first soldier swung his weapon, but the man ducked, slashing with his knife. The blade struck the soldier's arm, making him stumble back with a cry. The second soldier lunged, tackling him to the ground. They wrestled fiercely, the man's body straining against the heavy armor. The girls screamed from the other side of the wall. The man shouted back, "Run! Go now!" Tears blurred the younger girl's eyes, but her sister dragged her into the wild lands beyond. They disappeared into the tall grass, their small figures fading from sight. The man fought on, his strength fueled by one thought, keeping the girls free. The soldiers struck him again and again, but he would not let go. Even as pain spread through his body, even as blood filled his mouth, he kept fighting. At last, he broke free for a moment, stumbling back toward the gap. His hand pressed against the stone, his vision blurred, but he forced himself to smile. "They are safe," he whispered. The soldiers dragged him down, their voices filled with rage. But the man's thoughts were no longer with them. They were with the 2 sisters running far from the colony, carrying his choice with them. Hours later, the girls reached a hill overlooking the wild lands. They stopped, their small chests heaving, their faces streaked with dirt and tears. The older one held her sister close, her body shaking, but her spirit burning bright. "He saved us," the younger girl whispered. The older one nodded, her eyes shining with both sorrow and strength. "He showed us what humans truly are." They stood there together, two fragile figures against the endless horizon, yet stronger than they had ever been. The man's sacrifice had given them more than freedom. It had given them hope. For in that moment the sisters understood the truth. Humanity's strength was not in weapons, nor in power, nor in rules made by cruel leaders. Humanity's true strength was compassion, the courage to risk everything for the sake of others. And because of one human's choice, they carried that strength with them into the future.